So the invite link is pasted in the description. Alrighty, there we go. I think we are live now, or at least we should be. You guys, it's been quite some time here. We haven't been live on the channel since nearly January, I don't believe. It's been a heck of a long time. So today we've got a community mock draft for you guys. The link is in the description. It's in the chat. You all are able to join via that. If you guys have been sitting around here waiting, thank you so much. We've already got 3 people in the mock draft, so we've got 9 spots left available to be joined. Actually, we've got 8 spots opened up for you guys. So if you guys are looking to join the mock draft, hop in there. I've got the live chat up here, so if you're looking to ask any questions about the NFL draft, we've got a big draft show coming up this Thursday, April 29th, where I'll be going through the first round with Eric and all of you guys live. We've got some excellent picks and breakdowns to go through for you guys. We've got videos of highlights to put up on the screen, so it's going to be a great time, and I can't wait to get into that with you guys. So thank you for those of you guys that are watching right now. We'll get the mock draft started here in a minute. I'm going to wait for some more people to trickle in here and join the stream. We've got Lucas winning this, Arsenal 123, Raf 614 in the mock right now. Anyone is welcome to join. Anyone is welcome to come draft with me. We've got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about today, as I've already talked about. We're going to be getting into some stuff about the draft guide giveaway that's going to be going on Thursday on sizzlefantasy.com. Those of you guys that stop by the stream are going to be able to come check it out, and at various points throughout the night, Eric and I are going to be giving away random draft guides to those of you who are participating in the chat and whatnot. All you need to do is head on over to our website, sizzlefantasy.com. You can see it up on the screen right here. And just go to accounts and then sign up is all you need to do for today. Create your free account. It's just going to ask you for a username, password, and some information, and you guys will be able to enter that draft guide giveaway. You're going to be able to get access to our draft guide bundle, which is our best deal that we have on sizzlefantasy.com. You'll get access to the season-long guide with all of our 2021 fantasy information, and you guys will also be able to get access to our Dynasty and Rookie Kit, which is going to give you guys access to all of our long-term fantasy play styles, which I really hope a lot of you guys will get involved with this season, because I think Dynasty is by far the most fun version of fantasy football. If you like trades, if you like building things and whatnot, if you play a lot of franchise mode on Madden, you guys would absolutely love Dynasty. We've got trades happening nearly every day or every couple days in my Dynasty leagues, and it's super fun. So if that sounds like something you guys would be interested in, you absolutely need to play. Go get yourself hooked up with that season-long Dynasty kit. But if you want to take your chances, you guys, and you don't want to pay right away, you want to wait and see if you can get yourself as a winner on Thursday during our draft show, that's awesome too, you guys. Just go over, create an account like I said. All you need is a username, email, and password, and you guys can get set up there. We've got 6 people in the mock now. If you guys can pick whatever position you'd like. We've got the 1-3, the 1-4, the 1-7, 8, 1-11, and 1-12 left to be claimed here. So anybody who wants to join, the link is in the live chat. It is also in the description of this live stream, so you guys are able to head over, just click that and join on up. We'll talk for a couple more minutes here. Got some NFL news. The Chiefs traded their 31st overall selection and a couple of other picks for Orlando Brown from the Baltimore Ravens, which is a pretty big deal, I thought. Patrick Mahomes in a lot of my mock drafts, so you guys have been keeping up with those. I've had Kansas City picking a offensive tackle basically every time on the board, so that at least alleviates some of the need. He can go play left tackle for the best quarterback in pro football. It's a pretty big deal if you're a Chiefs fan. And also the Ravens, I think, got an excellent deal out of this as well, because now they've got 2 first-round picks, and they went out and addressed tackle immediately after that and signed Alejandro Villanueva from Pittsburgh. So a couple more minutes and we'll get the mock draft started, you guys. I'm excited to get into this. I'm at the 1-6 here, so I'm going to give, it looks like 4 of you guys so far the chance to draft before me, and we'll see what ends up happening here. Some other NFL news, you guys. Rob Gronkowski set the record for the highest altitude catch in world history. They dropped a football out of a helicopter at 600 feet, and he ended up making the catch there. So if you guys are sticking around here, make sure to like this video so other people can find it, join the mock draft, and we can get stuff going here. Also, you guys, if you have any fantasy questions, feel free to drop those down in the chat as well. I'd be more than happy to answer those off for you guys. And I would love to talk NFL draft. If you got any questions for me about that, I'd love to get into that because, like I said, we've got that live draft show that we're going to be doing and breaking down every pick on day one. We're going to be streaming for about 5.5 hours from 6 p.m. Central Time, which is an hour prior to the draft. So we've got an hour-long pre-show for you guys. And then all the way through the duration of the first round will be live. So, and one more time before we get started, we're going to have that draft guide giveaway. So all you need to do is tune in and be active in the chat. We'll have all kinds of stuff, up-to-date analysis by the minute, and all the picks for you guys. So it's going to be a great night. I can't wait for the NFL draft to kick this season back off, and we'll get started with stuff here. So it looks like we've got about everyone in the mock draft that's going to join for now. So we'll get things started here with Arsenal 123 on the clock here with the 1.1. The draft, we are starting now. So hopefully you guys are at your computers here or phones, whatever you're doing to get this mock started here. And we'll get things underway. So we've got a quick board today, only a minute on the clock to try and keep things rolling somewhat quickly, as we don't want to make this go too long because my goal is to get this to be a full fantasy mock for you guys. So Arsenal takes CMC off the board here at the 1.1. That's pretty fair. I can't really argue too much against that there with that selection. I think CMC is right up there in a class, probably by himself with Dalvin Cook. Is probably the only two guys I'd put up there as the top two guys. It's a half PPR mock draft, by the way. So Dalvin Cook is auto-picked there at the 1.3 after Derrick Henry goes. That's also pretty fair. I think half PPR, it's very, very balanced. Derrick Henry's done some stuff we haven't seen a lot of other running backs do for an extended period of time. 4 running backs off the board here with the first 4 picks. Alvin Kamara, obviously some question marks about the Saints this season. 5 running backs to start things off here. So, all right, you guys, I'm up here with the 1.6. I've got some decisions to make. So the top 5 backs, in most people's opinion, I'd say these are probably the top 5 consensus backs, are all gone right now. And if you've watched any of my mock drafts throughout the offseason, obviously take it with a grain of salt because things are constantly changing and situations are constantly moving about as well. That's one of the biggest things in fantasy football. I would say at times situation is actually more important than a player's overall talent. I've only got 27 seconds, but I got a pick fairly quickly here. Excuse me. I've got Davante Adams, the best wide receiver in football, up on the board. I've also got Jonathan Taylor, so I've got a tough decision to make here. But I'm going to actually go with Davante Adams to shake up the board a little bit and take the first wide receiver. So one of my draft strategies that I've been talking about a lot here throughout the offseason is that I think kind of the consensus for a lot of fantasy channels out there, a lot of fantasy analysts, is running back, and that's all you're picking early. And I think while running back, it's undisputable that it's a very scarce position and there isn't too much top-end talent to look for on the board, I think that if you pick running back too many times at the top of the board, you're actually limiting your team's overall potential to have a super high ceiling. And here at the 2.7, I look at the board and there's lower-end RB1s. These are guys I'd feel comfortable with my being my leading back on my fantasy team. You look at guys like, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon, they've got their question marks. I think Jonathan Taylor is a great take at the 111. But guys even like Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs has got huge question marks surrounding him based off of Kenyon Drake coming to town and just some other stuff that's going on. Those aren't the guys that are ultimately going to go out there and win your fantasy league. I think you got to go out there and pick some high-end wide receivers that can really bolster your team's ceiling. So that's why I went with Davante there. There's plenty of guys here I feel comfortable with. J.K. Dobbins has a massive ceiling. Miles Sanders is hit or miss. DeAndre Swift is hopefully going to be in a really solid offense. But I'm actually going to turn around here. It's between J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers for me. I'm going to go Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams. Cam Akers is a guy who has absolute electric breakaway speed. This guy is going to hit the edge, and he's going to be a home run hitter this season for the Rams. Add in the fact that Matthew Stafford, his new quarterback, is probably going to make that offense function more smoothly, and he's going to give that football team more reps on the board per possession, because I just assume that better quarterback play is going to lead to more first downs. Drives are going to be more extended. He's going to have more opportunities to be on the football field, and he's got a great supporting cast defensively. The Rams are going to be a great team. They're going to be winning a lot of games running out that clock. So if Cam Akers stays healthy, he's going to be a really solid RB1, I think, this season. It was pretty hard for me to take him over J.K. Dobbins because I think J.K. Dobbins also has that electrifying factor to his game, and he's another one of those guys that is a big play hitter. But at the end of the day, Cam Akers is the guy I feel really comfortable with, and whereas J.K. Dobbins, I think, is also a really great, talented player, I would move him down slightly just because I think Lamar takes a lot of that running option out of the playbook. So Antonio Gibson comes right after Cam Akers. I think that's another great pick. We'll see what happens on the draft Thursday night. I don't assume that they're going to pick another running back that they have a significant role planned for. I think Gibson's a really nice dynamic piece for that Washington offense that doesn't really have that many great options. So I like Antonio Gibson there at the 2-8. Stephon Diggs, Stu 40, he's got himself a great 2 picks here off the board. Stephon Diggs and Alvin Kamara is one heck of a pairing. That's exactly how you got to do it in drafts, you guys. He's got himself a top 3 or 4 running back, one of those guys that has a true ceiling at the running back position. Alvin Kamara is probably the best receiving back in pro football other than Christian McCaffrey potentially. He's got himself that elevated ceiling, and he turns around and gets himself a super high upside wide receiver 1, whereas he could have taken a second running back here, you guys. But he goes out there and takes a top 3 wide receiver, in my opinion. If you pair Stephon Diggs with Josh Allen, you're going to get some huge plays. That's a great one right there. I love that pairing. The CPU at the 3rd overall pick went Dalvin Cook and James Robinson back-to-back. That's fine. I think that goes more along with the traditional style of fantasy football, going running back here. We've got ourselves J.K. Dobbins, so they went with the 3-piece at running back there. I think that's fine. But at the end of the day, like I said, I love going out there and addressing some other positions that can be helpful. I think that they played the board all right there, but I would just love to see some more upside. We've got some chats going on in the live chat here. Raf614 says the draft on Thursday is going to be so fun. I couldn't agree more. I hope you come around on the channel here. Check out the live stream, man. We've got so much stuff that we've plugged. We've plugged hours, Eric and I have, into making this a high-level production. We're going to make it a really fun evening for you guys. We're going to be on the whole night, and we've got so much stuff planned. You can get yourself hooked up with the free fantasy football draft guide if you'd like to as well. And it's just going to be a great evening, and we're going to see a lot of stuff go down. The future of the NFL is truly going to change on Thursday night because of how many impactful things are going to happen in the first round of the draft. So I can't wait for that as well. I'm really looking forward to that. I have been for months, as basically the only content I've been putting out here on the channel has been mock drafts. So looking at the board here, I've got 45 seconds to make my pick. I'd like to go break down some of the other choices that you guys are making because that's very interesting to me, but I think it's also fairly important that I pick up some players here. I love the idea of Darren Waller here in the 3rd round, but I think maybe that's a little bit too much value placed on a tight end outside of Travis Kelce this high on the board. I would ideally like to pick a second running back to have that position locked down here before I move into the next phase of players here, because this is where wide receiver gets super, super deep, you guys. There is a handful of players. For the sake of time, I'd love to take more time to make this decision, but I'm actually going to go with DeAndre Swift here, and I think this could change very drastically before the start of the season. So I go back-to-back young running backs in year 2. These guys have got a lot of energy and a lot of miles left on their legs to be burned here. Based off what we hear from Dan Campbell, this wants to be a run-first football team. I think the one thing that might hold Swift back this season is they're going to be losing a lot of games. I think Detroit has a lot of holes on that roster. But the thing that plays to his advantage is that I think Detroit has a running back in DeAndre Swift that is very good at catching passes. And after the catch, he's one of the more explosive and dynamic players in the NFL. I think that bodes well for him here. And that's what ultimately leads me to make that choice there at the 3.6. So I think looking here, I actually really like the idea at the 4.7 of taking a Najee Harris or a Travis Etienne, but we have no idea where those guys are going to land. If you guys are curious right now, my top running back in the class based off of talent and skill set overall is Travis Etienne. I think Najee Harris is probably the more community consensus pick, but ultimately it could flip either way based off of where these guys land. It's possible that Najee Harris lands in a spot where he's the starter day one, and Travis Etienne heads to a committee-style backfield or goes somewhere where it might be more tough to have a successful situation. So looking at the board here again, I've only got 15 seconds. I probably should have made this a 90-second clock just for the sake of being able to talk for an extended period of time for you guys. But I think I'm going to go wide receiver here in the 4th round. One of my favorite guys last season, if you were around on the channel for most of the year, was Allen Robinson because of the level of consistency that he provides. I think Robinson is kind of a less athletic with a lower ceiling type player of Davante Adams, who I've actually drafted onto this fantasy squad already. So I really like how the board's already playing out in my favor here. Davante Adams and Allen Robinson are two very, very productive wideouts. Adams is going to give you those home run games. He's going to give you those huge performances with 2, even 3 touchdowns on the board, super high 100-yard performances, and he gets basically all the targets in that Green Bay offense because of the rest of the Packers roster really isn't commanding that many targets. Allen Robinson, similarly in Chicago, the quarterback play is not great, but Robinson is a guy you can depend on game in and game out if he's healthy to produce. You add in the fact that he's in a division with the Vikings secondary, which is very weak. Detroit's secondary is not very solid either. And the Bears, again, might not be so hot of a football team this year, so they might be passing a lot. I think Allen Robinson's highly slept on and really disrespected out there, so this could be a pick that winds up very well for this team. I really like how my board is playing out already. This is a half PPR mock draft. I don't think I mentioned that yet. But nonetheless here, I start off the board here, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and I'm feeling really good about where I'm at here. After this draft is done, I think I'm going to take a few minutes and just break down all these teams because I don't quite have enough time to break it down in between picks, which is my own fault and wrongdoing for not giving you guys more time. My concern at the beginning was overall how long this mock was going to take. We're going to get into the chat here and answer some questions. So Ref 614 says he's wary on JT because he might not get the workload like he had at the end of last season with Mack coming back and Hines being the pass catcher. You know, as much as I love Jonathan Taylor, I think this is something that absolutely has to be considered. So we got our first auto pick of the draft there. David Montgomery heads to Lucas winning this at the 411. And honestly, I agree. And it's always in the back of my head. I think that sometimes it's definitely possible to overthink certain players and their situations and to be overly cautious about a guy. But I think Jonathan Taylor, there is question marks there because he wasn't planned to be the starter heading into last season. Ultimately, though, the one thing that I think keeps me confident in Jonathan Taylor is I think the talent is far and away higher from Jonathan Taylor than it is from Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is also coming back from a significant injury, and he's playing on a quite small contract, which pretty much tells me the Colts don't have big plans for him to be a workhorse. Is he going to take some carries away? Yes, at the end of the day, I think that he will get some carries, but so did Jordan Wilkins last season, and we saw JT struggle early on, which was a big factor in him not really breaking out until the end of last season, but Jonathan Taylor is also an underrated receiving back, and I know that you said Nyheim Hines is there, and I completely agree with that. That is Nyheim Hines' skill set. I just don't see Jonathan Taylor falling below RB1 level status. Will he be in the top 5 of running backs? I'm not so sure. Right now, I've kind of got him on the cusp of the Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb tier right there. I've got him kind of in that 1B class of running backs. I think Saquon Barkley could absolutely catapult himself into that 1A class, but we've just got question marks because of injury, offensive line play, and just overall team. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to play out over the course of this draft. We're going to learn a lot on Thursday night, which is actually going to have a big impact on fantasy football, and I can't wait to get started with stuff in that aspect. So, wow, the 1.3 team here has 4 running backs: Dalvin Cook, James Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, and Travis Etienne. Those are some pretty nice running backs, and I think that come end of the season, they might have themselves quite a nice core of running backs. It's a 2-flex league as well, so obviously you're going to have a more higher emphasis placed on those running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends positions here, but at the end of the day, walking away into round 6 with Kenny Golladay as your only wide receiver on your football team, I think is a bit concerning. I think Kenny Golladay is a really talented player. I think he's in a team where he's going to have the opportunity to be the one in that offense, but I don't think that we can just automatically trust him as a wide receiver 1 when he barely played any games last year. He had significant injury risk. I'd love to see this team get another wide receiver or 2 because I think that you're limiting your upside, like I said, in that aspect. James Robinson's a guy who's not very explosive. I don't see much upside for him. He's a safe guy because he gets a ton of volume at the moment, but we never know. Jacksonville could go out there and pick a running back in the middle rounds and have a committee, or they could even go to a guy with some more talent next year. So that's kind of a watery pick for me. I'm not loving how the CPU is doing things, but I am liking how you guys are picking around that. At the 5-6 here, I've got 20 seconds, so I've got to pick pretty darn quick here. 5th round, I'm not loving the running backs. I've got 10 seconds. Tick-tock, tick-tock. This is not great for me here. Chances are I might just get auto-picked and have to live with it because I'm not loving any of the names that I'm seeing at the moment. Here, we'll go Mark Andrews. All right, there we go, at the buzzer. So that obviously was a little bit rushed. Wasn't exactly my finest moment there because I was talking about other picks while I was on the clock and I didn't even realize it. But I think Mark Andrews in the 5th round is somewhat fair. He was going in the 4th and 5th round last season. I think he fell off a little bit because the touchdown production was faded a slight amount. We've got a lot of rookies going off the board here in the 5th round. Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, Juju Smith is not a rookie, but nonetheless, I just said him. But nonetheless, Mark Andrews is a guy who is not necessarily going to catch 10 balls in a game, but he is Lamar Jackson's best receiving threat on the Baltimore Ravens football team, and he is the best guy down there in the red zone. So he's going to have some great touchdown production. He's kind of the safety blanket for Lamar, too. So if there is a guy who's really talented in that offense, I think it's Mark Andrews, and he's a guy I would love to have around my tight end 4 or 5 spot. And in the mid-5th round, it's worth pulling the trigger. It was a little bit of a rushed decision there, but I'm not really sure I love any of the picks that happened after him more than I would have picked Mark Andrews to begin with. So before I get myself in another ugly situation here with only 30 seconds left on the board, we've got a 2-flex league here, so I really want to consider running backs before I run out of opportunity with that position. And I think that I'm going to end up having to go quarterback here just because I put myself in a bad spot. And I think the 6-7 is a perfect time to go Josh Allen if I'm really thinking about things here. So I'll actually put my team up on the board so you guys can see everyone that I've drafted so far. Josh Allen's a top 3 quarterback in fantasy football, if you ask me. He's got Stephon Diggs, the top 3 wide receiver. Really, really talented guy, great deep threat. I think those two, when you look at wide receiver and quarterback pairings, like their play styles fit so well together because of how good Stephon Diggs is as a deep threat and how big of an arm Josh Allen has. There's some majorly explosive plays. One thing I just want to address here, you guys, Trevor Lawrence going at the 5-10 before Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers is quite foolish. This is based off of sleeper ADP, so this is where people are. That's average draft position. That's where people are selecting these players in mock drafts. So it shows you that there's rookie hype right now. You've got rookie fever because the draft is coming up. People are way overvaluing their rookies here. I should probably learn from my past lessons and start looking at the board before my pick is up and get some names that I might like. Running back is running very thin here at the 7-6 is where I'll be picking. I would like to add a solid number 3 option that I can depend on. Kyle Pitts goes at the 7-3. That's interesting. Kyle Pitts is quite a polarizing player that I would love to address as the fantasy season gets underway here after the draft. I think Kyle Pitts could go one of 2 ways. He's going to be a very, like I said, polarizing, very intriguing player to talk about this offseason because I think when we think about his ceiling and his potential, we all think of Kyle Pitts as a generational talent and prospect and a guy who could come out here and put up absurd numbers. I've heard him be compared to Megatron and whatnot. And really the only guy that we see above the bar and really separating himself from the pack at the tight end position is Travis Kelce. So when you think about Kyle Pitts, it's really intriguing to want to pick a guy with that much talent and risk a lot to invest into him. As a rookie, though, I think it's a bit of too much of a risk. I would say if you're in a dynasty league and you can be bullish on Kyle Pitts, go for it and pick him in your rookie drafts. I would probably pick him somewhere on the 5th or 6th spot in your draft if you can get a hold of him there. I think that's a pretty nice value on him. But in a redraft league, I'm not so sure I would pick him terribly high because I think if you end up picking him before a Mark Andrews or even before a Kittle or a Waller, you're going to get burned because at least we've seen those guys before in the NFL and know what they can produce for us. Whereas Kyle Pitts is going to be more of a player who doesn't necessarily have a defined role day one, even though he might go to a nice spot. So I want to lock up my third running back here, a nice bench substitution guy that I can plug in on Cam Akers and DeAndre Swift's bye weeks, a guy I can put in if there's an injury. And who I've got my eye on right now is either Raheem Mostert from San Francisco or, at the moment, Tevin Coleman down here. He's somehow going below Tariq Cohen in drafts, which is kind of silly to me. I think that Tevin Coleman's a really nice piece, so is Raheem Mostert from a talent perspective, but unfortunately both of these guys have major injury concerns. I'll take Mostert off the board here. Raheem barely played last season. When he was out there, he was fantastic, and he was one of the players, I would say, with some of the most upside at running back position. Obviously, we saw what he did to Green Bay, my Packers, in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago. Absolutely fried us. Maybe one of the most embarrassing games I've watched in my life. And then he was fantastic, but he dealt with, I think he had a meniscus injury. He did something to his ankle. It was all lower body stuff, so it's actually quite significant for running back. He's a really explosive guy, though. When you look at Tevin Coleman, another guy I had my eye on, he's currently penciled in to be the starter day one for the Jets, which I think could actually happen. I would be shocked if they didn't go out there and at least address someone in the rotation for that new offense they've got there in New York with Robert Saleh, who I'm really hoping, I'd say if there's a team I'd put as my number 2 fan base team, I'd pick the Jets. I think they're just a really interesting look. I'd love to go out there and see them pick up another running back and get a strong run game going, but I don't think you can count on Tevin Coleman in fantasy or in the NFL to put up 16 games on the schedule. Throughout his career, he's had injuries, and he's really talented when he's out there, but he's not a consistent piece, I wouldn't say. I'm going to take a gamble here at the 8-7. So I've got my top 2 wideouts locked down. I've got a reserve running back. There's some really nice wide receivers out here I'd like to add. This makes my decision a little bit more tough. I love Deebo Samuel, Deontay Johnson. Marvin Jones might have a really nice role. I'm going to go out and pick up Will Fuller, though. Maybe if I had more time to think about this and wasn't so rushed, I'd probably go maybe Deontay Johnson as a safer option. But I think Will Fuller having some deep threat ability and some really nice routes, he could really help out Tua this season. I think that he's probably going to take over as the one in that offense because Devontae Parker, very talented, but not exactly the most refined route runner. He's kind of a jump ball winner. And I think Will Fuller is just a guy that's going to be more dependable on a play-by-play basis. He's suspended, so he's not going to play at the beginning of the season, but very talented player. 1-year prove-it contract with Miami. I like that a lot. We've got a risk taker here at the who's this? This is the auto draft team here. So we've got Desean Watson. We don't even know if he's going to play a snap of football next season. That could be a very risky pick here. I'm going to hop back to the live chat for a second. Baseball Kid 2016 says, what do you think the chances are of Denver not drafting a quarterback in this draft? And I would say my answer to that question is a very good question. Drop down any NFL draft questions you have, you guys. We'll be live during the entire first round of the NFL draft. Instant picks and analysis, draft guide giveaway. I'll be giving away 10 copies free to sizzlefantasy.com for the season-long and Dynasty rookie bundle kits. So go check those out, you guys. Raf614 says he's got Kyle Pitts. He's going to get Kyle Pitts in his Dynasty draft. He's got the 3rd pick. You know, I think that if you don't have a huge emphasis on running back, that's not a terrible idea. What I would actually say to you, Raf, is if you can probe around, get some information in your leagues, figure out who the guys after you want, because you can acquire some extra draft capital, even moving back to the 4th or the 5th pick, just baiting guys to come up for an ETN, a Najee Harris, a Jamar Chase, whoever falls. Because if you're looking to pick Pitts at 3, I don't think it's likely that guys who might be RB needy behind you would take Kyle Pitts and snag him away from you. So try and get some extra value there. Maybe snag a nice rotation player that you can bring up from your bench every once in a while. Just think about every scenario before you make your draft pick. There's so much interesting stuff in Dynasty right now. I'm in the same situation. Hopefully none of my league mates are listening right now, but I'm actually considering Kyle Pitts. I have the 2nd pick in my draft, so I'm looking to move back a couple spots. I'm really good at running back. I would love to take an ETN or a Harris. I'm just not so sure how much they help my team. And I think Jamar Chase might be the 1.1 pick in my mock draft, or not in my mock draft, in my Dynasty draft. So, and as another player who I'd really like to have if he's not there at 2, I'd like to slide back a few spots, get some extra picks, and pick him up there, maybe in that 4th or 5th spot. So it's looking like I'm going to get auto-drafted here because, once again, I'm not paying attention. Here we go, Deontay Johnson. I was going to pick him last round. So at the 9-6, I get a player who I really like as a consistent wide receiver 2 type player. Johnson has had his lower body injuries. He's had some issues with staying healthy on the football field. But when he's out there, he's a target hog. Ben Roethlisberger slings the football around to Deontay Johnson. He had a lot of double-digit catch games last season, or at least a lot of double-digit target games last season. So I think he's a guy you can depend on, even in a somewhat crowded passing offense. You guys, Pittsburgh's running game is terrible. They cannot run the football. Their offensive line stinks. They just lost Alejandro Villanueva. They lost their center Pouncey to retirement. Their line was terrible last season. It is going to get worse. They almost have to pick line in the first round of their draft. I thought they were going to probably take Najee Harris with the 24th pick, and I mocked that early on my channel, but lately, you guys, I've had them going offensive tackle. I think that the need is so pressing that they don't really have much options because we saw them at the end of last season get so one-dimensional and they just sucked. They were playing awful football when that happened. I like watching Pittsburgh. I think they're a fascinating team, but they were not the group of guys that we saw at the beginning of the year start off 11-0. They really struggled. So I've got another decision here. Lots of wide receivers are still on the board. I'm getting a lot of really great value to fall to me, so I'm going to snatch up Deebo Samuel before I get auto-picked there. Only 2 seconds left for me. Tevin Coleman's still on the board, so if any of you guys are up on the clock, I think that would be a very smart investment of your time there. Tom Brady goes to the auto-draft team. Desean Watson and Tom Brady there. Live chat for a sec here. We'll check out Lucas wondering how I think about his team, and so is Mike T. He's got the 1.1, so I'll check your guys' teams out right now. I'll give you a quick breakdown. I see Lucas asked first, and then I'll get to you, Mike. Derrick Henry and Julio Jones, then George Kittle. I think that, Lucas, you've got yourself some risky players there at the top of the board. Very talented, don't get me wrong, but George Kittle and Julio Jones have been somewhat injury-prone. Here, we'll zoom in on the team here so that you guys watching on the stream can focus in here. Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, George Kittle, David Montgomery, Cooper Kupp, Justin Fields, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Evan Ingram, and Matt Stafford. You know, the Todd Gurley pick of the 7-2, I'm not a big fan of that one, if I'm being completely honest. Todd Gurley's a guy who he really was only relevant last season for his touchdown production. He kind of struggled at times, if we're being honest, with having productive games in the yardage category. But he is a guy who can fall in the end zone. Right now, we don't know at all what his outlook is going to be for next season. We don't even know if he'll be a starter if he's playing somewhere. So I think I'd be a lot more cautious on Todd Gurley, though. Justin Fields, as your first quarterback off the board, might be a bit risky. Maybe if he goes to San Francisco, he's not a day one starter. But I think he's a really talented kid. He's my second-ranked quarterback in this prospect board here behind Trevor Lawrence. Henry, though, you can't go wrong with that, the 1-2. If Julio Jones is healthy the whole season, that'll be a nice wide receiver 1 for you. George Kittle, you're getting ahead of the game in the tight end facet of the fantasy. So you set yourself ahead nicely there. David Montgomery falling to you at the 4-11 is a great value pick. In the NFC North, the run-stopping units are awful, you guys. Green Bay cannot stop the run to save their lives. Minnesota is average at best, and the Lions suck at it too, almost as much as the Packers. So Montgomery could be a steal in fantasy. If you guys remember how wild he went at the end of last season, Okay, Lucas said he got auto-picked Todd Gurley, so now I can't hate too much on that pick. I'd say fair enough there if that's what happened. The 11-6, let's check this out here. Who is on the board? Let's see. Did anyone take my advice and snag Tevin Coleman away from me? Otherwise, I'll pick him here. Oh, Raph picked him the pick before me. That's low, man. I'm just kidding. That's a good pick by you there to get some nice depth at the RB position. I'm really not loving the running backs on the board right now at all. I think Zach Moss maybe is a solid RB4 for your team, but by no means do you ever want to be starting him. You know what? This is a half PPR league, and I saw him way down here. Where was he? Oh, Damian Harris is another nice pick. I'm going to get auto-picked, you guys. I've got too many choices to make, and I don't have enough time. So, yeah, that was a fun little auto-pick frenzy. Let's see who I get drafted here. Hayden Hurst. All right, you guys. I would never recommend picking 2 tight ends on your team in a 16 roster spot league. So I'm not too pleased with that auto pick there. It is what it is. I took too long to make my selection, so I'll live with it. But Hayden Hurst is solid. There's a lot of rumors that Kyle Pitts might go to the Falcons. So maybe Hayden Hurst is the tight end 2 on his team, which would obviously make him very attractive in fantasy football. So let's see if I can get, there we go. I was trying to get off the highlighted view of just my team. Yeah, I don't love that pick at all. I would have rather had a running back or something along that line. Hayden Hurst is fine. At the end of the day, I don't mind it too much if I get the same value I did out of him last season. But if I'm going to pick a second tight end, or at least a tight end this far down the draft board, I would rather it be my first tight end because, like I said, only 16 roster spots in this league. If we're being honest, I think it's more valuable to your team to pick one really solid tight end at the top of the board. Set yourself ahead from the pack there, and oh wow, I just got auto-picked again. How do I turn that off? Or did I genuinely get auto-picked? All right, you guys, that was not ideal. Let's see. I'm gonna pause the draft here because I'm sorry, Raph. Don't make your pick just yet. There's probably a small delay in the draft board here, but I want to remove that and fix this. So we're gonna take a real second here, you guys, so I don't get two trash picks for you. So I would like to take a fourth running back here. I got auto-picked Hayden Hurst at the 11-6. I've got Akers, Swift, and Raheem Mostert, a nice core to start with. Zach Moss is probably the most intriguing prospect as a guy who is a somewhat starter on his football team. Darrell Henderson, also a really nice consideration when you consider the fact that Cam Akers has been dinged up at various times last season. Other guys are unproven rookies. We don't know where they're going to land at, so I don't want to be too bullish on these guys. I do like the idea of a Damian Harris. This is a half PPR league. He doesn't have too much upside, but he can be a pretty safe plug-and-play on a bye week. So Damian Harris is someone I would consider here, and Naheem Hines even is a guy who, as a PPR option, I think that would be pretty solid. Here we are. That's what happened. I'm on auto, so someone just dropped that in the chat. I'll figure out how to turn that off, you guys. Yeah, so I'm going to go Damian Harris here. I think, like I said, limited upside for Damian Harris, and this is a half PPR league, so it's not necessarily the best situation in the world that he's not too much of a pass catcher. Well, I'm going to... Oh, okay, that's awesome. Hang on a second, you guys. So they have Sony Michelle in New England, but he's had his injury problems. He's had his own issues. I need to figure out how to turn off the auto selection here. If anybody knows how to do that, here we go. Turn that off. There we go. All right. Let's resume the board. There you go, you guys. I think we got this fixed now. I apologize for the inconvenience of that. Damian Harris for the 9th time. Limited upside, but when he was out there last season, he was fairly dependable. That Pats offense will hopefully take a step forward with the tight ends they brought in, the wide receivers. Maybe they'll even go out there and draft a quarterback this year. I think Trey Lance is a guy that could go after if he falls down to that pick 10, 11 spot. That's something really interesting that I'd like to watch as well. Yeah, thank you guys for helping me figure out how to get that off. Sorry about that little inconvenience there. You guys are watching this, head down and like the stream here so you guys can help this video be found by others trying to watch some mock drafts. I'd love to do this again with you guys sometime. I'm having some fun. Hope you guys are too. So if you'd like to do some more mock drafts throughout the off season, that would be awesome. I'd love to have you guys around for that. I'm going to be hopefully getting in some more weekly videos. I've only been doing mock drafts for most of this off season. It's been pretty dead. Something I considered was potentially going to do some sort of a Madden series for you guys in the offseason since things were a bit stagnant and obviously not too many people. Although my brain runs fantasy football 24/7, 365, I know not everyone else's does. So I struggled to find some content for you guys, but maybe in the future, a Madden series when we've got a low point could be something to look out for. If you guys would be interested in that, let me know. I certainly would have a lot of fun doing that for you guys. But otherwise, I was just doing mock drafts and rookie stuff. So hopefully, though, after the mock draft, or excuse me, after the NFL draft, people will be getting more into fantasy football and stuff will be picking up here so I can make some more content for you guys on a weekly basis. That would be awesome, and I'd love to get some more stuff out there for you guys. So, only a few rounds left here. Let me know, you guys, any questions you've got about the NFL draft. Remember, we've got a draft show live on Thursday, April 29th. We'll be going a pre-show up to an hour before the NFL draft starts, and we'll be going all the way throughout the entirety of the night. getting you guys all the information, all the immediate picks and analysis, draft guide giveaway. 10 lucky winners are going to be able to walk away from the stream with access to sizzlefantasy.com and our draft guide bundle for the 2021 season. So once again, if you're new on the stream here, all you need to enter that giveaway is head over to sizzlefantasy.com. The link is in the description of this live stream. Click on it and go to account on the top right corner of your screen and click sign up. It's very easy, and you just got to enter an email, a username, and a password, and that's all you got to do for today. If you want to go ahead and purchase access early and get yourself locked up, it's a pre-order access right now, so not everything that we're going to have accessible to you guys is in there yet, because frankly we don't know a lot of the information about the season-long guide, and a lot of the stuff that we need to know is going to be coming out post NFL draft. So for example, like all the rookies, we don't know a thing about their redraft value right now, because there's so much more to consider when we look at their value based off where they land and whatnot. We've got a pretty good idea of who we like as prospects and talent, but we don't have the best idea as to where they're going to be and if they're going to have a chance to play year one. So a lot of stuff, you guys. That was a mouthful, but I'm enjoying this mock draft. I hope you guys are too. Make sure to like this video if you guys are having fun with me. Round 13 here. We've got some interesting players on the board. A lot of rookies, like once again. Let's see. Is there any players I like? I like the idea of Darrell Henderson here at the 13.6. I need a backup or a handcuff at least for Cam Akers. I'm not the biggest handcuff guy in the world, but I think that in this situation, it's appropriate because of Cam Akers' injury issues. So, and the potential that Sean McVay rolls out another committee style next year like he did to start off this season before he handed it over to Akers at the end. So, good point here from Lucas. I still need to go over Mike T's team, drafting from the 1.1 position. And I actually think Mike T got a steal here down the last pick. Mike Davis kind of slipped under the cracks. Right now, I think Mike Davis is the favorite to be the starter in the Atlanta offense next season. So he potentially just picked himself up a starting RB in the 13th round. We don't know yet. NFL draft coming up, like I've said a million times on the stream. It is absolutely possible that they draft one, maybe even two running backs to shake things up here. But CMC, AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley. That is a beautiful, and not even mentioning Darren Waller here. This might be, honestly, the best start of any of the teams on the board here, and I would even argue this might be better than my team start. I think that you might be looking a little bit weak at your RB2 spot, but the top four picks were fantastic. I've only got 50 seconds, so I'm going to go through this quickly, and then I'll get back to you here once you'll probably be back on the board. A lot of great value picks down here in the later rounds. Justin Herbert at the 11-1. That is a great quarterback to be picking up there. I actually wrote an article on Patreon before I discontinued that and started SFS Gold on sizzlefantasy.com, which is basically the same thing. It's exclusive fantasy content from us here at SFS, all of our insider information and all of the extra analysis that you don't necessarily get exposed to here on our YouTube channel. I wrote an article about Justin Fields. He's going to be the most valuable quarterback in the 2021 fantasy football. I think that if there's a guy you're looking for to get in your fantasy leagues this season, it should be Justin Herbert. If you're not picking a quarterback at the top of the board, that's absolutely someone to keep your eye out for. Another highly underrated guy that you should go out and target in your leagues is Ryan Tannehill, who I just picked up here in the 14th round. Ryan Tannehill is a beast. You guys don't realize how good this player is in fantasy football. He's going to have to pass a lot more this season. We saw him get into shootouts last year, and he was actually quite productive in those games. Derrick Henry tends to fall off when things start heading the passing direction. But, Mike, your team's looking great for value. And I agree. He says he was chasing value here. That's just fine, because you can take a Chase Claypool and a Cortland Sutton and find a wide receiver needy team and flip those guys, and boom, you've got yourself your RB2. And Mike Davis, like I said, he could be the starter. So if you look at it from that perspective, CMC and Mike Davis, you're rolling out an elite 1A running back with probably a B running back, but a guy that you can afford to have a B at when you have two A's at wide receiver, and then you've probably got a B or a B plus in CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins. Who knows how Cortland Sutton will look next year? Ayuk was very consistent last season, so lots of great value from you there, Mike. I think that was a great way to go. keep some questions flooding in, you guys. I would love to see Dynasty-style content. Like I said, I want to get you guys playing Dynasty because I think you'll love it. On SFS Gold, one of the things we have is we have a Discord channel. So if you guys are SFS Gold subscribers, you will be able to get access to the Discord channel. And I think I'm actually going to open that up publicly for a while. And by doing so, I think that is going to open up a lot of potential for Dynasty startup leagues under the SFS umbrella of things. I'll be able to oversee those leagues for you guys. Maybe I'll even participate and play in some leagues with you guys. I think that'd be a lot of fun. We can discuss whether we want to make it free or paid. I think having paid-based leagues makes it a lot more incentivizing to actually play your fantasy league and keep up with it. I'd love to have you guys join those. I think that would be something great to do. Getting you guys playing with each other would be something awesome to have this fantasy season. So I would absolutely love to do that. The draft's almost over, you guys. Don't worry about that. If you're free to stick around here, I'd love to keep talking football with you guys. Fantasy, I can switch back over to just me on the screen, or we can take a look at sizzlefantasy.com. Do whatever you guys would like to do. 20 seconds here. I need to make a pick. Oofta. So I've secured my second quarterback spot. Really what I need is a flex. Wide receiver is looking a bit weak right now. Here, we'll go out here. I'm about to expire, I think. So I'll just pick Corey Davis. I saw Corey Davis, John Brown, Cole Beasley. All nice wide receiver 2s or 3s this year. A lot of upside with Corey Davis heading to town in New York, where we're probably going to have Zach Wilson, who's a big playmaker. If you watch my mock drafts, by the way, I'll have a mock draft coming out tomorrow on the channel, and I'm already back up on the board. So I had Justin Fields go in my mock to the Jets last time around because I think that's what the Jets should do. I think that the Jets would be very smart to pick up a player like a Justin Fields, who I think is a little bit more predictable, a little bit more controllable than a Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, by all means, has a great arm talent, and he's a great football player. But I think that he's just a little bit too loose. He's a little bit too unpredictable for a New York-style team that has had a lot of struggles and a lot of issues structurally within the organization. I think that having a guy who can be a little bit more roped in, like a Justin Fields, would probably be better because I think he possesses a lot of talent as well. I just realized here that I need a defense because I put defense into this mock draft, which makes sense because it's a fantasy mock. I've got some great choices here. Ooh, San Francisco. I really debated between them and Tampa Bay right there. But, yeah, there we go. Raph takes Tampa Bay off the board. I could have made this mock a couple rounds longer, to be honest, you guys. Hey, you guys, what the heck? I'm happy to keep streaming if you'd like to. So, if you guys are interested, I'd be more than happy to jump into another mock draft with you guys. Maybe we'll make it 6 or 7 rounds, rookies only. We could do a dynasty rookie draft if you guys would be interested in that. Type in the chat if you'd be interested in doing a rookie mock draft, because we've got plenty of time here. We've only been live for about 45 minutes, so I'm down to keep talking football, talk NFL draft with you guys, talk dynasty rookies, go over some value of players. I think that'd be something fun to do if you guys would be up for that. I'll go over some team reviews here, though. We've got some questions in the chat. So, like I said, if you guys would be down to do a rookie mock draft, hit me up. I would do that with you guys live right now here on the channel. I can drop the link and get that started for you right away. So, it looks like Matt Nash wants to know how his team's looking. Zeke, Austin Eckler, Cooper, McLaurin. Here, we'll highlight the team for you. We've got some solid picks here. I think that at the top of the board, going running back with Zeke can be a bit risky, but I think that there are some encouraging things. First of all, we know that Dak's going to be coming back next season. Obviously, Dallas is tied to him long term. But we've got he started catching passes next season. Sorry, you guys, I'm reading chats as I'm doing this. I think Zeke's great talent. He unfortunately has declined in his yards per game every season that he's been in the league. So I think that his best days are certainly behind him. But I think he's still a solid RB1 to have on your football team. Maybe I'd like to see a Jonathan Taylor taken above an Ezekiel Elliott. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your personal preference. That's just what I would do. I'm just here, you guys, to advise you and give you my insight into things because I spend a lot of time looking into stats and information and doing, obviously, ridiculous amounts of research for you guys, which you can find in the SFS draft guide. But Austin Eckler in the second round, another really great value running back to have. A great pass catching back, maybe one of the best in the league. Austin Eckler, a little fun fact for you, is actually the pound for pound strongest player in the National Football League based off of how much he weighs and the amount of weight he's able to lift. So Austin Eckler's quite a beast. I think for your wide receiver core here, maybe I would have I see Justin Jefferson come off the board, even Calvin Ridley after you picked up Amari Cooper. I think those guys might have a little bit more value, a little bit more upside. The thing that concerns me a little bit about Amari Cooper is he tends to kind of fade away on the road games at times. And while he is extremely explosive, very talented, he is in a crowded passing offense. So that's kind of the same issue with Zeke, to be honest. There's just a lot of mouths to feed. Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. You even toss a couple tight ends in there in the rotation when guys go down with injury. I think they're really talented and solid players, but in fantasy football, there's better value and better opportunity to be had. And Calvin Ridley, even, I could see him falling down my board a little bit, even Julio Jones as well, just with the amount of volume that I think a guy like a Kyle Pitts would command if he is to be drafted there on Thursday. So a lot of stuff to consider, but I certainly love both of those guys. Terry McLaurin, I think that's a great pickup for you in the fourth round. That's really solid. OBJ in the late fifth round could be pretty solid as well. There's some other guys going after him. They have some really nice upside and some really nice potential, but I think OBJ there is a solid pickup. Kareem Hunt as your RB3, I like it. I think he's a guy who can come in, and if Nick Chubb gets hurt again, you've got yourself an RB1 in the meantime while he's out from injury. And in full PPR leagues, Kareem Hunt can be very, very solid in situations where, you know, he comes in there and he catches a bunch of passes, and that's really beneficial to obviously have as a second running back or even a flex player. Jerry Jeudy, if the Broncos go out and select another quarterback this season, could have a breakout season. They have a lot of mouths to feed in Denver too, but he's a really talented young player and a guy I think could have a lot of upside. I love Tyler Boyd at the 8-4. I think that's great value as it currently stands. There's been some rumors that Jamar Chase might head to Cincinnati. I think that's a mistake if they end up picking up Chase. I think I'd rather see them go Kyle Pitts if they're going to take a pass catcher. But nonetheless, I think, you know, Tyler Boyd is a really consistent guy. He had some injuries last season, but up until that, he had a couple straight 1,000-yard years. I think Joe Burrow is a great quarterback to pair him with. So if Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are the 1 and 2 options at the wide receiver positions next year, I think that's a really, really solid guy to go out there and get as your wide receiver, your wide receiver 4 on your team. You can plug him in and play him in the flex spot a bunch of times every year. I'm not too in love with the Tariq Cohen or Tyler Higbee pickups, but I think they can be salvageable. Denzel Mims, we don't really know what we're getting from him yet. Robbie Anderson down here is a steal at, the 12-4. And then you just took a shot at Zach Wilson here. What's that, your first quarterback off the board? And actually, I don't love that you took Zach Wilson ahead of a guy like Kirk Cousins because we've never seen him play a football game before. But Kirk Cousins is one of the most underrated fantasy quarterbacks there is, actually. He finished within the bounds of being a top 12 quarterback last season. So Kirk Cousins has a lot of value, actually, there at the 15-9. He's got 2 really good wide receivers, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. You even add into the mix that Dalvin Cook is in there. That offense is pretty lethal, and those guys can get things rolling. And then your last pick, I'd like to give a kudos to you guys for not picking defense until the last couple rounds of the mock. Washington football team, that's a very good pass rush to pick up there at the 16-4. What other questions do you guys got for me? Mike T says Dynasty is the best type of fantasy football. Absolutely, Mike. I love redraft. This was a redraft, mock draft, but I would love to either sometime get going a Dynasty mock draft for you guys. We could do a Dynasty startup mock here live on the channel if you guys would be interested in watching that. Otherwise, we could certainly do just rookies only. I think maybe I'll plan something rookies only immediately after the NFL draft or a Dynasty startup mock because that's what type of season we're getting into here. We're almost to May. May through June, even into July is going to be startup Dynasty League season. So hopefully I'll be getting you guys set up with some startup leagues and getting you guys set to go for that stuff because I'd love to have you guys at least try that this year. And then redraft stuff will be July and August, talking a bunch of mock drafts, a lot of values, must-own players, and whatnot, stuff like that, you guys. So make sure that y'all are ready for the NFL draft on Thursday. Tune in to the live stream here. I'll have Eric with me, and we'll be going over every pick. You've probably heard me say it 5-10 times here on the stream today, but I could not be more excited for that, you guys. I think that's the best content that I will have put out here for you guys on the channel. It's going to be a big deal when we put that out for you guys because it's going to be a really fun night. We're going to be live for, like I said, 5.5, 6 hours until the 30-second pick has been made and all of the input and analysis has been given. We will be live. Like I said, an hour-long pre-show before the start of the draft. We're going to have a ton of stuff for you guys to consume and a lot of stuff for you guys to participate in. The draft guide giveaway, 10 of you guys will be walking away with SFS draft kits for the 2021 season. What else we got in here? Raph says, how does he feel about his team? And I can't so he's not going to be able to do another mock if I choose to do that, which I'm not so sure we will. Saquon Barkley and Antonio Gibson, Raph, that's a solid way to start off your team there. Justin Jefferson, Robert Woods, I love those as your top 2 wide receivers. I think since you drafted Saquon Barkley, there is an argument to be made against my drafting strategy, which typically would be to go out and pick a top-end receiver, like, for example, Stephon Diggs that was picked immediately after your selection. However, I think that since you went out there and picked a running back coming off an ACL injury like Saquon Barkley, we know he's really talented and we know that he can be a great player. I think it's worth potentially being cautious and going back-to-back running backs. My main strategy, you guys, here, I'll break it down for you, is I would love to see you, if you're in the top 5 or 6 picks, go out there and get those tier 1A and 1B running backs, your Christian McCaffreys, your Dalvin Cooks, your Derrick Henrys, your Alvin Kamaras, Saquon Barkley, maybe even a Nick Chubb or a Jonathan Taylor, depending on what scoring format you're playing in. But if you're going to be in these back 7 to 12 picks in the first round, go out there and take the guy with the most upside. If you take wide receiver in the first round, that is okay. Guys like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, even Stephon Diggs, I would say for sure. DeAndre Hopkins maybe even as a borderline late round 1 pick. I'd even toss Travis Kelce in there. Like you see him go at the top of the second round at the 2-1. These guys can return high-end value to your teams and give you the great upside you need. Don't reach on a running back just because they're a scarce position. You, at the end of the day, need to draft enough running backs to maintain success in fantasy, but you don't have to pick them in the first round because, like a lot of fantasy analysts will tell you to draft running back the first 3 rounds of your draft and just take the best one available every time. That's not always going to play out to the best of your advantage. You see a guy like Josh Jacobs go at the top of the second round. Josh Jacobs has little to no upside. You know he's going to get a ton of carries, but he gets barely any explosive plays. He's got Kenyon Drake in his backfield now, and you just don't know what his season is going to look like next year. Even a guy like, let's look at some other running backs that went here at the top of the board. Joe Mixon. I love Joe Mixon. He's a great player, but he seems like he's always hurt. Don't take a guy just because they're there, just because they're the best running back available. I think that there are a ton of options to go about this. I'd say maybe you should aim to walk away from the first 3 rounds with no more than 2 running backs. I think you need to take at least 1 running back within your top 2 picks. But I would say if you're in the back half of the first round, don't go back-to-back running back because I think at the end of the day, that can kind of bite you in the butt a little bit and limit your upside at the wide receiver position because while there is a super deep crop of wide receiver talents, we don't necessarily know that those guys are going to give you the best upside because even if we take a look at my team, you know, we've got Will Fuller, Deebo Samuel, and Deontay Johnson. I think those are really nice wideouts, but I don't know that any of those guys are true number 1s for my team. I think they're all really nice wide receiver 2s. But if I'm relying on a bunch of running backs who, yeah, they're going to get a lot of carries but not give me too much upside, and then I do the same thing at the wide receiver position, where is my advantage in that roster? And I think that that's something you guys have to consider equally, along with the fact that not every position is valued the same. So, like I went Devontae Adams round 1, super high upside wide receiver 1, and I turned around in my first 2 running backs after that. Like I said, no more than 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. I walk away with 2 guys who have really nice upside, but guys that I don't necessarily have to lay the entire stakes of my team on. And so I think that's the way to go about things at the top of the board. Oh, sorry. Back to Raph here. I got off on a tangent there. Or who was I breaking down here? Sorry, you guys. I got on a big tangent there. How do you feel about my team? And yep. So I was looking at Raph, I think is what I was doing here. So at the end of the day, Raph, Justin Jefferson is a wide receiver 1 in my book. Robert Woods, super safe, wide receiver 2. He puts up borderline wide receiver 1 numbers, but he doesn't have that boom, that ceiling that you're looking for at times. DJ Moore, on the other hand, does have that. I'd say that whereas Robert Woods is a guy who you can count on to give you a consistent 11, 12 points a game in a half PPR league, DJ Moore is more of a guy who you're either going to get 4 or 5 from or 20 because he has very explosive, big playability, and he was actually one of the most effective players at jump balls last season. But he's not a super high volume wide receiver. You can't depend on him every play. Dak Prescott as your quarterback 1, that's very solid, assuming that he can come back right away from injury and play for you week 1. Marlon Mack's a nice shot in the dark here, I think, is a guy who, if something happens to JT, Marlon Mack's probably the next man up who's going to get that workload back, and we've seen him do quite all right when he is the top guy in that offense. Michael Pittman, I'm not a huge Michael Pittman guy, but you know, there's not too many names in that Colts offense at wide receiver. T.Y. Hilton struggles with injury, and Carson Wentz has a big arm, so Michael Pittman could make a splash. I absolutely love taking T.J. Hawkinson at the 10-8. I think T.J. Hawkinson's a top 5 or 6 tight end, and he's very underrated. I did consistency ratings, which is one of the biggest points of emphasis I made in my off-season research this year. Those are guys that I'm really interested in, are guys who are consistently dependable and put up a points per game basis that you can count on and hit a certain mark, a certain percentage of the time. That's something you guys will get access to if you purchase the draft guide. It's something I think is incredibly important. TJ Hawkinson scores very close to the top in all of the metrics I put him up against, so that's a great pick there at the 10-8. You guys will hear me say consistency ratings a lot this offseason, because at the end of the day, that's going to be one of the more focal points of my analysis and one of the main things that I hit home to a lot. Tevin Coleman at your 11-5 pick, that's another great one. Tevin Coleman's the starter right now. Like I said, I don't think you should expect him to play 16 games because he hasn't showed us once throughout his career that he can do that. But I think he's a guy that is talented, and when he's on the field, can put up some solid RB2 numbers. I apologize, you guys. My chair has been squeaking throughout this stream. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it's quite loud. Zach Moss, decent player. The Bills don't have too much of a run game outside of Josh Allen, to be quite honest, especially down on the goal line. So he's a guy I'd be interested in down here in the teens rounds, but not a guy I would invest into as a starter for your team. But you picked him at the proper value, I'd say. Gesicki's another playmaker I like. Mike Williams, he's got high upside, not too dependable, but he has made some freakishly athletic plays. And hey, Darnell Mooney might be a wide receiver too this year down there at the 11-5. Or excuse me, it's the 15-5. Jeez. And there's rumors that Anthony Miller might potentially be moved on from this offseason, so we'll see about that. And then Tampa Bay's defense to cap things off is perfect there. You got a team with a... When I look for defenses in fantasy football, if you guys are wondering, this is solely what I look for. I look for a team with a really good pass rush and playmakers that can force turnovers. I don't think it's very smart to invest in a team that you think is going to hold opposing offenses to minuscule points, because I think that's kind of a dangerous game to play. You can find a defense like a couple of years ago, the Bills were really, really solid, but they didn't get any sacks or interceptions, so they didn't really net very many fantasy points. Look at a team like Tampa Bay, a team like San Francisco, Washington football team. Great front sevens, great pass rushes, and they end up netting a lot of fantasy points. So I think that's a great way to go about things there. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Baseball Kid 2016 says, how do I think his team turned out? He auto-picked rounds 7 through 9, so I'll keep that into consideration. I think we looked at your team briefly at the top of the board. Which team were you? Were you... Hang on a second. He might have left the mock draft because I'm not seeing his team in here. All in all, who do I think has the best team going into the NFL season? That is a great question. I think that the best roster in the NFL right now is probably Tampa Bay. When you look at their entire team, they're bringing back all 22 starters this season. I might talk about this for a second, so keep dropping questions, comments, anything you guys got to say in the chat. Otherwise, if stuff starts to die down here, I'll head out. But Tampa Bay is returning all 22 starters from that Super Bowl roster. That is going to be an incredibly consistent team. Oh, Baseball Kid 2016 is Stu 40. All right, I'll look at your team in just a second, man. Yeah, Tampa Bay is returning 22 starters. Tom Brady in year 2 with that offense. I think the picks are going to come down a little bit. We might see the touchdowns hover around the same point, maybe even influx a little bit. Tom Brady is going to be a really interesting fantasy quarterback because we know he doesn't have the rushing volume that any of these other guys have, but I think he might be one of the most efficient passing quarterbacks next season. That team is lethal. The offensive personnel they have, the skill people they have on defense, the pass rushers they have, like their first round pick will genuinely be a luxury pick. They don't need something extra. They don't need any help at any positions really. I heard some Tampa Bay fans in my mock drafts telling me that they'd like to see a running back be picked at the end of the first round. I mean, they brought in Gio Bernard, and he's kind of a rotation guy. He's a guy who's going to come in and do probably a receiving role and have a specialty on that team. But regardless, the Bucs are going to be really, really good next year. I think San Francisco will be solid. We'll see who their quarterback is going to be next season, but I think there's definitely a world where they're a really, really strong team as well. Jimmy G, Mac Jones, or otherwise. If you've been keeping up to date with my mocks, you know I do not like Mac Jones, but that's the way it's looking right now. All right, I'm going to get into Stu 40's pick, or his team right here. Kamara, Diggs, that is a great way to start the board off. Mike Evans has a lot of touchdown upside, like I just talked about with Tom Brady moving into year 2 here. I think there's a lot of upside to be had. Kyler Murray as your quarterback at the 4-9. You know, I think Kyler Murray's really solid. My typical strategy is to go later on quarterback because if you look at the board here, I gave my hats off to Mike T here, picking Justin Herbert at the 11-1. That's a pretty darn solid value pick right there. Even Matt Ryan with Arthur Smith as his new head coach at the, the 9-12. That might be another really great value pickup. Ryan Tannehill down here at the 14-7 has a lot of upside this season. Joe Burrow coming off that knee injury maybe isn't ready week 1, but I think there's a lot of good stuff there. And then Kirk Cousins, as I've talked about briefly as well. Dak Prescott, I think, is good. Also, you guys, I just caution drafting Desean Watson. Here's a quick off note to talk about. If you have Desean Watson in a dynasty league, what should you do? Here would be my advice to you guys. If you've got D-Watt and you can get a significant trade offer for him, absolutely take it. There is a chance that Desean Watson does not see an NFL field for a very long time. Now, with that being said, before you guys come at me about that, don't just give him up for a bag of chips. If someone is looking to get him off your hands for cheap, obviously his trade value has probably taken a hit recently because of all the allegations and whatnot. Hang on to him if the value is not there, but if you can get significant return on investment for Desean Watson, absolutely do it because you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of it and what's going to come with that. So I'd be a bit cautious with D-Watt there. Anyways, back to Stu's team here. Melvin Gordon at the 5-4, I think is a really, really solid RB2. And my consistency ratings that I just talked about not too long ago, he actually performed better than I expected him to. So he was actually kind of a high-level RB2 performer, and he missed a game or two because of some issues off the field. So Melvin, he doesn't have Phillip Lindsay in that backfield anymore. We'll see if they draft a guy. They've still got Royce Freeman there, but he could be a nice value pickup in the 5th round as an RB2. Just to say, you guys, like, the difference between a Melvin Gordon at the 5-4 and a Kenyon Drake at the 4-6, who I can't even believe he went that early, though, especially because he's now sharing the backfield with the Josh Jacobs, is ridiculous. Like, Melvin Gordon is going to give you so much more value and similar, like nearly the same level of production as even a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't see an increase in volume from what he had last year, these two guys are not going to be that much different, and they're taken 2 rounds apart. Melvin Gordon is not the flashiest pick. He's not exactly going to win you your games. But if you want to win your leagues, pick these high upside wide receivers in rounds 2, 3, and 4 after you've already locked up a solid RB1 to lead your football team, like Stu did here with Alvin Kamara, and you're going to be well set on your way to success for a nice season. You need to have enough depth to be prepared for injuries, bye weeks. Who knows? Maybe a player gets into trouble. You need to have 3 or 4 solid running backs that you can depend on. But I think even in a 2-flex league, you're much more inclined to have a successful season if you even only roll out 2 running backs as starters on your team and just leave the rest of the work to your quarterback, your wide receivers, and your tight ends to give you that boom upside to go out there and take over and win those games. Because at the end of the day, I think that you can win fantasy leagues with wide receivers, but there are very few running backs who can actually win you those games. So I'd be cautious about that. I wouldn't be too ambitious to go out there and pick 3 running backs right off the board. So yeah, Stu, I'm liking the way your team's looking here. Tyler Locke at the 6'9", very, very solid pick up there. He's a bit inconsistent, but when he boomed very, very extremely last season. I think he had 15 catches for 200 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns against the Cardinals. It was a ridiculous game. I think these are the rounds he said he auto-drafted, which would have been Jalen Waddle and Le'Veon Bell. That makes sense. Ronald Jones, the 9-4, that's solid. I like Noah Fant as another one of those top 8 tight end prospects. Jared Cook, solid as well. He could potentially actually be a really deep sleeper with a guy like Justin Herbert throwing the football this year. And then the rest of your pickups, they're just bench depth. The Broncos defense, too. I know you're a Broncos fan, so I'll let you get away with that one there. Last couple of notes here before we head out. I think the stream's kind of winding down here. We've been mocking for over an hour. And I'll see you guys again live Thursday for the draft show, which will have all of our immediate picks and analysis. The top 10 or 10 lucky winners will get to walk away with a draft guide from sizzlefantasy.com. We'll check that out one more time before we head out of here. You guys will get access to that if you are just sticking around, hanging out throughout the stream and watching what we've got for you guys. So that should be a pretty big night as well. Lucas said, who has the best fantasy team going into the NFL season? I think if you're looking for a team with really great fantasy value, I would keep your eyes out for some of the teams with just loaded potential. I think that there's definitely a time and a place where different players start to kind of decapitate each other's fantasy values. We see that in Dallas, I would say, for sure. There's a lot of really good players on that football team. Like I mentioned earlier, Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup. All guys with a lot of great potential. Last year, I think if you were to end up like going and drafting a team top to bottom and you drafted the Green Bay Packers, you probably had yourself a top-end fantasy year. I know a guy in my league went out there, and picked up Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones in rounds 1 and 2. This guy's not even a Packer fan, just to note that for a sec. And then he goes out there and picks up Robert Tonyan off the waiver wire, and he drafted Aaron Rodgers, and he had 4 Packers, and he would just run rampant through the league for a lot of the time because people just couldn't keep up with the amount of points Green Bay was scoring, and Rodgers had 48 touchdowns. But other than that, I think you look at Kansas City with Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes. Maybe we'll even see the introduction of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a top back this year, which I think would be awesome. Some other teams maybe to keep your eye out for will be the Vikings, honestly, as a sleeper with Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. Kirk Cousins is highly, highly, highly underrated. If you're looking for a guy who doesn't necessarily have massive upside but has a really consistent floor and is a late-round sleeper, I think Kirk Cousins is someone to keep your eye out for there early on in this offseason. There's certainly a lot of options there, though, for that. Okay, so we weren't even talking NFL teams here. We're talking of the 12 teams in this mock. Who has the best fantasy team going into the season? All right, so I just talked about that. We'll talk about this really quick here. Check out the website. We'll talk about the draft show on Thursday one more time, and then we'll head on out of here. So of all of these teams, I think, honestly, the team that I think is best prepared, I really like my team. I really like how Stu started off the top of his board, but I love how Arsenal started his team out there. I think that going CMC, getting the 1A running back, it's either him or Dalvin Cook this year in my book, and then going and getting A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley, and then getting probably, I would rate Darren Waller ahead of George Kittle right now because of the availability that he has over George Kittle with playing more games than he has over the last 2 seasons. that was a great start. And then he did acknowledge he's chasing value. I mean, we don't see him take another running back until Chuba Hubbard in the 10th round, Chase Edmonds, Mike Davis down here. But Mike Davis is the starter in Atlanta right now. But nonetheless, you can still flip some of these wide receivers for a running back too when you have a guy as talented as a Christian McCaffrey. So I got to go with Arsenal right here at the 1.1. Fantasy analytics show us that the team drafting in the first overall spot typically wins the fantasy league. I think that's a good demonstration in this mock draft because I think he did things very, very well here. One more quick recap of my team. Only go running back 2 of the 3 rounds at the top of the board. I don't think that you're doing yourself any favors if you pick running back back-to-back in the first 2 rounds, or if you go all 3 rounds running back. I think you got to get yourself a high upside wide receiver or even splurge on a Travis Kelce like this team did here at the back end of the first, top of the second there. One with Allen Robinson in the 4th round, really safe, consistent wide receiver 2 who actually produced wide receiver 1 numbers last season. Mark Andrews, give me a top 5 tight end to throw into the mix. Josh Allen, a super high upside quarterback player. And then Raheem Mostert to round out that top 3 running back core is the guy with high upside, but not someone I have to depend on to be a top back week in and week out. Will Fuller, Deontay Johnson, Deebo Samuel, really nice bye week fillers, really nice flex players who are solid wide receiver 2 candidates, really. Will Fuller and Deebo Samuel have some really nice upside. Deontay Johnson's going to look to give you some more volume. We got auto-picked here with Hayden Hurst, but still a decent tight end option for the time being until a potential Kyle Pitts gets drafted there. Darrell Henderson to handcuff Cam Akers there at the top of the board. Like I said, I'm not a huge guy who likes to reach on players to invest in the handcuff, but I think in a situation with a guy like Cam Akers who got banged up last year, it's appropriate. Then we ended things off with Ryan Tannehill, great value quarterback, great number 2 option. Maybe Ryan Tannehill plays so good at the start of next season that I decide I can invest in someone else and bolster another spot by flipping Josh Allen for some nice compensation. You never know what might happen. And then Corey Davis down here at the 15th round, high upside, potential wide receiver 3 or 4 guy with the Jets this year. Obviously coming there on that nice 1-year deal. And then the 49ers with a nice pass rush to round out that defense. So one more time, you guys, before we head out, sizzlefantasy.com. Make sure to go check it out. Create your account, you guys. You don't have to buy anything today. You can just go in there, enter a username and a password, and get yourself set up with an account. You can even enter in your own fancy personalized avatar for your account and just hang out. You don't have to buy anything, like I said. You can wait until Thursday when we go live for the NFL draft. We're going to be kicking things off at 6 p.m. East or Central Time. If you guys are early to the draft, you guys want to see us do a pre-show, you can stop by and check that out. We will have everything you need for the draft, picks and analysis, draft guide giveaway. 10 of you guys are going to get access to these draft kits down here that you can see. So the winners will get this bundle. You'll get access to our season-long guide and our dynasty guide for free. So all you guys got to do is hang out on the draft night, be active in the comments, tell us what you guys think about the picks. We're going to be interacting with you guys all night long. We've got awesome highlights and all kinds of animations to put up on the screen for you guys when picks are made. We've got trade alert notifications and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be a great time. We've also got SFS Gold here on the website if you guys choose to sign up, and you guys can get access to our most exclusive content there. And as you see down below, we've got articles, videos, and all kinds of stuff here. I think one of the most exciting things that we've got in the draft guide is our Dynasty Guide collection, which is actually the most affordable of the 3 options. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's stream. I had a great time mocking with you guys. Make sure to go create your account on sizzlefantasy.com. It only takes 5 seconds. And I'll see you guys on Thursday for the NFL draft. Mock draft Mondays tomorrow, so make sure to keep your eyes open for my mock draft. I'll either be coming out with 1 to 2 more mocks before Thursday. I think that typically I only do 1 mock per week, but this week I might give it an extra mock as my final mock draft for the 2021 season, because I'm sure trades and whatnot are bound to happen before obviously the draft kicks off. So without further ado, you guys, I'm not sure that we have any more questions down in the comments. Lucas says, awesome stream. We should do a dynasty mock sometime soon. Couldn't agree more. I think keep an eye open for that next week, potentially as something that we can get into here. I'd love to keep going live with you guys. I love interacting and doing stuff live on air, I guess you could say, with you guys, where I can interact personally with you guys, have a conversation with you all. don't get me wrong, I love recording, but I would much rather come on here and actually talk to you guys and see what you guys think and whatnot as well. So without further ado, you guys, thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.